This podcast discusses themes of mental health, which some people may find emotive, such as suicide or other adult-themed content. The information contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. All views expressed are solely those of individuals involved and do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which we have been, are now, or will be affiliated. The information is not meant to diagnose or treat any mental health condition. If you're experiencing mental health symptoms, we encourage you to contact a mental health service within your community. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please seek the relevant support and interventions by presenting to your local accident and emergency department or contacting the relevant emergency services.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
Welcome to The Man Hug, the monthly men's mental health podcast. I'm Dean McShane.
I'm Dan Cooper. I'm Ian Pearce-Hayes.
And I'm Conleth Kelly.
Each month we will discuss a different topic related to men's mental health, which will include a guest speaker who will discuss their own personal story. And each month we will also be showcasing an organisation or charity within the Merseyside area who work within mental health to help build your signposting skills. Hello, welcome to this month's Man Hug. We have two more fantastic guests today, and we're going to be talking a lot about the theme of aspirations. So later on, we're going to be joined by Paul Morgan from the local initiative Kit It Out. But first, we are joined by ex-professional rugby league player Ian Knott. Now, Ian is an English former rugby league footballer who played from 1993 to 2005, and he played at club level for a whole host of professional clubs that include Warrington Wolves, Wakefield Trinity, Wildcats and Leigh Centurions. So, Ian, welcome to the Man Hug.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're really excited to have you join us, Ian. So, first off, let's just talk a little bit about your rugby career. So, on reflection, how would you like to talk about your story?
Well, as a kid growing up in Oldham, all I ever wanted to do from about 6-year-old was be a professional rugby player. Yeah. And by the time I was 13, I was lucky enough to sign professional form to Warrington. And by the time I was 17, again, I was lucky enough to be in the first team, or played in the first team. So I spent 9 years at Warrington. Then from there I moved to Wakefield Wildcats, the other side of the Pennines. So I was there for 2 years, and then in 2004 I signed for Leigh Centurions. Wow.
So obviously today we've picked Aspirations as the theme, and you just said there, you know, it was your childhood dream. So how soon did you know that you wanted to be a rugby player?
Well, my granddad used to be a rugby player, played for Salford. My dad also was a rugby player, not professionally, but he did play. And one of my earliest memories, I can remember having a rugby kit on. So, like I said, from the age of about 6, something like that, that's all I ever wanted to be.
God. So in sort of school all the way through, you know, when careers advisors and teachers are asking what you're going to do with the rest of your life, you were literally, I'm going to be a rugby player, and that's it.
Well, it was either rugby or football, to be honest. And quite a few teachers said I was probably better at football. But the only trouble was I was a defender, and I didn't like anyone getting past me, so I used to always bring them down. And I was probably a bit too physical for a footballer, so I think the natural step was to be a rugby player. Wow. Yeah. Was there a point when you were growing up where you thought, you know, what if I don't become professional? What will I do with my life? What career will I take? In all honesty, no, there wasn't. It was just everything was focused to being a professional rugby player. Wow. You know, you hear Gary Neville and people like that speaking. They say they used to go to bed at 9 o'clock, things like that. That's literally what I did. You know, I was ultra professional as a kid, and that's all I wanted to be. So, you know, I'm really lucky to have lived my dream, I think.
So you knew and you were driven and determined from that young age that this is what you had to set out to do, to be strict and to be professional to get there.
Yeah, I was driven, but I also had great parents who took me everywhere, and they were very supportive. And, you know, don't get me wrong, they let me know if I didn't play well. But, you know, my parents were great. You know, they also did the same with my sister, who was a successful gymnast. Oh, wow. So they were always like ships in the night passing. You know, one was taking me to rugby, one was taking my sister to gymnastics. So, you know, I'm thankful to them as well for everything that's gone.
In terms of aspirations, you know, did there come a point, I know you've been like captain of clubs and thing, Was that a moment where you went, I've done it, I've made my dreams come true for what I wanted as a child?
Probably the time where, like a 13-year-old, something like that, I think, and I had quite a few scouts coming in for me. And when my dad got the first nudge off a scout, and that's when I thought, oh well, perhaps I might be good enough. Yeah. But it wasn't until I made my debut for the first team where then I thought, right, I'm here now. Yeah. But that's where the hard work starts, because not only just getting there, you've got to stay there.
Yeah, yeah. And how hard was that?
Very hard.
Yeah.
It was, because at the time at Warrington we had quite a few young players in my position, so. You're always kind of fighting against each other, but that breeds success, I think. So
brilliant. Do you look back on your career now with sort of happy memories of all of those things? Post Aspirations as a child, is it everything that you wanted to?
I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be brutally honest. There was a period where I didn't, and I really resented the sport, at the game. Sure. It was my issues. Don't get me wrong, but I do now. I look back fondly now.
Brilliant, that's great, yeah. So in terms of what you do now, obviously you're here today to talk about your own story and state of mind. So tell us about your own story that got you involved in state of mind.
Well, it was a strange one, really, because I was just going as a fan to watch a grand final, and my wife was talking to some guy I'd never recognised before, and it turned out to be Phil Cooper, who was one of the founders of State of Mind. And he's a Warrington fan.
Sorry, Dr. Phil Cooper.
Sorry, yes, Doctor, yes.
Just in case he's listening.
At the end of his name now as well. Yeah, and he was a Warrington fan, and he'd heard about my story, so he just like talked to my wife and said, would he be interested in telling his story to a few people, for the charity. Yeah. So at first, I was like, oh God, I don't know. I didn't know if I could relive it. And the first few times I did speak about my story, I really struggled. I get emotional, I cry. It was like a big adrenaline dump afterwards. I was knackered for ages afterwards, but you know what? The more I do it now, if I'm brutally honest, I probably love doing this more now than what I ever did playing rugby, because I feel like I make a difference now. Yeah,
that's incredible, isn't it? In terms of your story that you spoke about there, then what sort of things is it that led to that then?
Right, well, my story kind of starts in 2004 when I signed for Leigh. At the time, Leigh hadn't been in Super League. They were making a massive push to get into Super League, and they signed a lot of ex-Super League players, and a lot better than me. Some big names, Tommy Martin. But I was really honoured to be named captain of this squad, because it was a really good squad. And if I'm honest, it was probably as good a squad as many of the Super League at the time. So the season started, and we were playing really well. We were beating teams, by 40 points. We played Halifax away, probably our nearest rivals at the time. I can remember I took a ball in and got tackled. As I got up, I felt these god-awful pains across my lower back and down my leg. And it felt like my foot was in a bucket of ice water, which was strange because it was summer's day. So I thought, crap, there's something wrong here. So reluctantly I came off. I say reluctantly because we're a bit stupid rugby players. We do play with a bit of pain. Not like footballers, you get stretched off with a rip sock. We play for a pain barrier. But with this, I knew there was something wrong, so I came off, and a couple of days later, the pain got worse. So I went to see a surgeon who obviously gave me an MRI scan, and he told me that I had a slip disc, like prolapse disc at the bottom of my back. So he said, go back to the club, tell them, get surgery and you'll be all right for next year. So I went back to the club, and like I said, being a rugby player, we all came to the sensible conclusion to ignore the surgeon, play half a season rugby with a slip disc. Now, to say that was painful would be an understatement. If we got into any kind of a lead, they'd bring me off. We trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, and I couldn't really train at all, and the pain was that bad. But it was a successful season because we won the treble that year, gained promotion. I had the surgery and woke up in recovery, and all the pain down my leg had gone. Instant pain relief, but I still had a bit of back pain, but I could cope with it. So from there, I had rehab, and then went into the next season with Leigh, first in Super League. And it was probably a role reversal, really. In all honesty, we were garbage. We kept getting battered. We were trying hard, but we kept getting battered. But then we got a break from Super League, and it was a Challenge Cup weekend. And coincidentally, we played Halifax away again. But Halifax. It's a similar story, really. I took the ball in, but this time it was a bad tackle. The last one was innocuous. There's nothing up with it. This time I got clotheslined, so my legs went from underneath me, and I landed on my back. And these pains just came flooding back. Got stretchered off, took to hospital, I'm lying there waiting for operation. Surgeon comes in to see me, MRI me back again. Now my surgeon's a lovely bloke, most polite bloke you'll ever meet, dicky bum and everything. So he put my scan up on this whiteboard next to me. So I said, come on doc, what's the damage? And his exact words were, "Notty, your back's fucked." Excuse my language, but that is exactly why we worded it. So I said, well, what do you mean? You know, I won't be able to play again this year. He said, you won't play rugby ever again. He said, in my opinion, your back's that bad, you're going to struggle finding work again. Now, at the time, I was strong mentally, I thought, so I thought, well, you know, I've got 2 kids to provide for, I've got my wife to provide for, of course I'm going to work again, I need to work. So I had the operation, woke up in recovery afterwards, screaming in agony. For some reason, the operation didn't take. Over the next, I'd say, 14 months, I had 3 further operations. So that's 5 operations in the space of, 2 and a bit years. To say that my mental health dipped in that period would be a massive understatement, because I'd gone from being a full-time professional, you know, I trained 3 times a day. If I got home, I was bored, I'd go for a run. I couldn't keep still, basically. Yeah. So I went from that to being completely bedridden. My wife had to give up her dream job. She was an air stewardess for Virgin Atlantic, so she'd travel all around the world. She absolutely loved it. She had to give that up to basically become my full-time carer. She had to wash me in bed, dress me in bed, shave me in bed. If I needed the toilet, she helped me with that. How my wife did it, I don't know. She was brilliant. She really was. But, you know, I just didn't appreciate her for it. She'd be trying to talk to me and raise my spirits. And I'd just shout and scream at her all the time. And like I said earlier, you know, I had 2 young boys who were at nursery and Link Club. They'd come home and I'd hear them straight away shouting "Daddy" as they'd run up the stairs. And, you know, I hate saying this now, but at the time it was like someone getting the nails and rubbing it down a blackboard. I just hated that noise. You know, they'd come in and see me, and I'd just shout and scream at the kids. Look, I was obviously very depressed, but I did not know what depression was at that time. Yeah. And if I'm honest, I probably come from an era where we wouldn't have said anything about it anyway. You know, we're always got told to not show any weakness when you play rugby, so I took that into my normal life, and I just kept quiet. At the time, I was probably taking 30 odd painkillers a day. I was on liquid morphine, I was on morphine patches. The pain was extraordinary. I can't tell you how bad the pain was. But probably the more painful thing looking back now is seeing the pain in my wife and my kids' faces. You know, every time I'd shout at them or scream at them, you know, it's awful. Best way to describe the depression would be, it felt like my head was in a vice, and every day it just get tighter and tighter to the point where I just thought it's going to blow up. Yeah. You know, I didn't know what to do. The thought of suicide crossed my mind a few times, but never did anything about it. So one morning, though, I got a phone call because one of the pain management team at the Walton Centre, and they offered me a chance to have a morphine pump fitted. Now, it's a device that's in my stomach at the minute. It's about, I don't know, it's about the size of the palm of my hand. It's about 1 inch thick, and it's got morphine and anaesthetic inside it. So the way they kind of described it to me was, you know, you have this pump fitted, you're going to be able to have much more of a normal life. You know, you're going to be able to socialise more, you're going to be able to play with your kids more, you're not going to be in bed as much, you're going to be able to do things with your wife, you're not going for a long time. I'll leave that to everyone's imagination. So I thought, you know, fantastic, you know, I'm going to get my life back here. So I went in for a trial for this pump, and some of the pain, they give me, I think it was in for 2 weeks, and they try me on different medication. They put placebos in sometimes to see what worked. And some of the pain relief was amazing. I mean, to the point where one time they put, I don't know what they put in the pump, but I couldn't feel my legs. I got up to try and walk and I just fell on the floor. So these nurses put me back in bed. So I've got a surgeon and 2 nurses, and they're prodding me. From the waist down, I was completely numb. I let the biggest fart out you've ever heard in your life as they're prodding me. So it's the most probably embarrassing thing that's ever happened. But they finally come to a decision on this morphine and anaesthetic. So they put this in the pump, and the pain relief was brilliant. So I'm in hospital, like I said, for these 2 weeks, but they couldn't fit me in for the surgery for another 6 months. So they said, you know, you have to go back home, and obviously, so then I go back home after having this thought of, you know, getting a pump fitted, and then the depression sunk in again. I could feel myself getting low again, you know, again, the same thing with my wife and kids. I'd just be shouting at them all the time because I was just infuriated because I was just constantly bedridden and I couldn't get out of bed. You know, if I could, then my wife had to help me, and it just wasn't a nice way to live compared to how we used to live. But then, say about a week leading up to getting my pump fitted, I could feel my spirits lifted again, you know, the promise of, you know, perhaps having a normal life or to some extent. So I went in, had the surgery, woke up in recovery, and yet again I was screaming in pain because the doses just didn't touch me again, because during that 6 months I'd upped the liquid morphine, I'd upped the morphine patches, so the dosage that was in the pump originally just didn't touch me. So I probably spent the next 12 months in and out of hospital roughly about 30 times, something like that, trying to get this dosage sorted. Again, to say that my mental health dipped would be an understatement, because there's no other way of wording it. I just became suicidal. Every thought on my mind was not really that I don't want to be here, but it was more that I don't deserve to be here, because my wife deserves someone to love her, to cherish her, to treat her like the brilliant woman that she is. I wasn't doing that, and my kids, God love them, they deserve someone to just be a good dad, teach them right from wrong, to play with them, show them love. I wasn't doing that, so I honestly thought that I'd be doing my wife and kids a favour if I wasn't here. I don't think, looking back, I don't think I wanted to die, but I really didn't want to live, you know, because I couldn't live with the pain that I was in, and I couldn't live with the pain that I could see in my wife and kids' faces. So one morning I woke up, I went downstairs, I got a big box of tablets, a bottle of water, and a bottle of Oromorph liquid morphine. So I took the water and the tablets upstairs, got in bed, and I swallowed all the tablets. So I was just waiting there, I realised I forgot the morphine. So I gets out of bed to go and get this morphine. Now, all the way across my landing and down the stairs, there's photographs of me and my family. And throughout the depressive stage, didn't really look at them, didn't think anything of it. You know, through obviously 12 months of being suicidal, didn't look at them and think anything of it. Now, I'm not a religious person at all, but I thank God to this day that for some reason I really started to look at these photographs, and the more I looked at them, I thought, what the hell am I doing here? You know, I thought I'd be doing my wife and kids a favour by not being here. When the reality is they're going to come home and find the dad, the husband, lying dead in bed. I'm going to ruin their life, my family's life, my friend's life, you know, God knows how many other people's lives. So I went to the bathroom as quick as I could. I got my fingers down my throat, as much medication up as I could, obviously rang for the ambulance and what have you. Then I was under the care of a mental health crisis team for the best part of 6 to 8 months. When I finished with that, I'd say I did the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life, which was sit face to face from my wife and tell her everything that I've been going through and everything that I've gone through.
So that hard conversation with your wife, how did that go?
Well, I think I must have been talking to her for roughly 4.5 hours, you know, non-stop, and the whole time, you know, I was crying my eyes out, you know, there was tears and snot flying everywhere. Must have been a right sight, but the more and more I spoke, the better and better I felt, to the point where at the end of it, you know, I felt amazing. I felt 10 foot tall because I'd managed to offload my problems, and, you know, I think back and it's like, if I could have done that a hell of a lot sooner, you know, I mightn't have had to go through the stuff that I went through. But then, obviously, speaking to my wife, that then gave me courage to open up more and seek more help. So CBT, you know, obviously more counselling and things like that. And, you know, things really starting to improve. You know, I was really going in the right direction. I'd say for about 6 to 8 months, I could really sense an improvement in my life. I still get dips, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I really sense an improvement. But I started to develop pains in my neck because I have a walking stick, you know, if I walk about, and the way my body kind of leans, I started to develop these strange pains. And at the time, because I weren't very strong mentally, I catastrophized things a lot. So for me, I thought, oh God, you know, this is a massive thing, you know, when in reality it might not have been. But I went to see this surgeon again, and again he told me that I had 2 prolapse discs in my neck now, but he couldn't operate on because I've now got a condition called failed back surgery syndrome. Basically, my spine won't respond to any treatment. So he said, basically, you just got to live with it, you know, painkillers, but live with it. And like I say, at the time, I did catastrophize things, so it was a massive thing for me, this now. After everything I've been through, it's like, why me? You know, that's literally what I was thinking. Even though CBT teaches you kind of not to look at it that way, but I couldn't help myself. But so I carry on, and then I could feel things kind of slipping again a little bit. But then it was strange because I started to hear these voices in my head, and it started as these, like, you've seen cartoons with like devil and angel on your shoulder. It started like that, and this one voice would tell me to do something, and obviously this other voice would say no. It was my voice I could hear, don't get me wrong. But it was strange because I couldn't shut them off, and I'd never experienced anything like this before. And then one day I was out with my dog on my mobility scooter. I always do this. It's not a motorbike. Don't know why I do that. And I'm going along, and I hear this third voice. Now, I didn't recognise this third voice. It wasn't my voice that I could hear. And this third voice, it was really abusive. It was calling me all the names under the sun. So I'd obviously look round, and I think, right, there's a kids messing about, because I used to get called Madge off Benidorm, you know, going around on my scooter. So I carry on a bit further, and again I'd hear this third voice, and again there was no one there. It weren't until I was in a park in a field in the middle of nowhere with my dog that I heard this third voice. I thought, oh shit, you know, got a bit of a problem here. Yeah. Now, knowing how good it felt to offload my problems to my wife, you know, but through my depression and things, when I got home, I just couldn't bring myself to tell her that I could hear these voices, because, I don't know what it was. Was it embarrassment or what? I couldn't bring myself. So I probably spent the next 6 to 8 months, again, these voices getting worse, and they just wouldn't shut up. It's at one point I got an iron to burn my hand to try and cause some kind of pain to get rid of these voices. Again, it didn't work. These voices were just constant. It was like I was a stranger in my own head. I just couldn't make head and tail of anything. Now, I was trying my hardest not to become depressed and to show the symptoms of depression, but thankfully my wife picked it up, because I was showing the same symptoms. You know, I was very ratty, irritable, you know, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was, you know, secluding myself. So she just sat me down one day and just said, look, Ian, we can't cope with this anymore. Me and the kids can't cope with it. You either seek help again or you're out. Now, at the time I thought, Christ, you've been a bit harsh, yeah. But you know what? It's the best thing that my wife's ever done, because, again, I went and sought treatment. I went to see a psychiatrist. He was fantastic. You know, got put on quite a high dosage of medication. And so much to the point now where I probably sitting in front of you now and I'm in the best place mentally I think I've ever been. And that's just down basically to my wife and myself. Well, my wife giving me the kick up the arse, but me being brave enough to seek the help. Yeah. You know, if I hadn't done that, then God knows what kind of situation I'd be in now. You know, like I said, the psychiatrist was fantastic. I'm still on high dosage of antidepressants now, but that's because I'm on a lot of morphine, and the morphine, it can be a natural depressant apparently. So the likelihood is I'll be on this for the rest of my life. But you know what? I've got not a problem with that, because people suffer with headaches, they take paracetamol. With me, I'm happy. You know, I'm in a really good place, and that's a lot of that's down to the medication I take. Yeah. So I'll keep on taking it. So I know there's people out there who are like, oh God, I don't want to take antidepressants, this, that, they've got a thing against them. For me, personally, I recommend taking them. If they make you feel happy, keep doing it. As for, you know, the voices, thankfully I don't hear voices now at all. The medication worked, and obviously the talking about it worked. There was a period where I'd hear them every now and then, but you know what? I used to talk back to them. I probably looked a right idiot, but you know, it worked for me, and thankfully now, you know, they're not there, touch wood. So yeah, like I say, as I sit here now, I'm in the best place I've ever been mentally. Brilliant. Physically and health-wise, probably a different story. I'd say 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And, you know, again, through everything I've been through, I could have gone to a period where, why me, you know, but I didn't, you know. Straight away, she started talking about it with my wife, you know, with my family, and I got through it no problem whatsoever. I say no problem, you know, 12 months of chemotherapy wasn't easy, but if that had been probably 6 years ago, the likelihood is now I'd be another statistic. I wouldn't be here now, you know. So I've got that. My neck is now kind of got worse, and they're saying now that they might need surgery. It's affecting my left arm, you know, it shakes a lot. But again, not a problem, because I can deal with these now, because the adversity that I've been through, all the crap I've been through, has made me the person I am now. And in all honesty, as I sit here now, I'm a much better husband, I'm a much better father, and I'm a much better person. And that's just because I've been brave enough to open up and talk about my problems.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's honestly, I think we're all sat here like our mouths are wide open with the inspiration from your story, really. There's so much that I can take from it, but I think the real big thing, which we reiterate on every single man hug that we do, is the power of opening up and talking, and I think that's, as you say, it saved your life.
Definitely.
It's changed your life.
Yeah, it has.
And now, you know, you're saying you're in a mentally better place now because of just that simple act of opening up and talking with someone. How much do you now preach that to other men that you get to meet through State of Mind?
Well, that's kind of my main story when I do sessions with State of Mind. It's just to tell people, you know, the importance of opening up. You know, like you said, I wouldn't be here now if I didn't speak about it. I know it's hard. It's very difficult, especially for men, to open up and talk about the problems. But the reward for doing it is so good. You know, you've got to do it, and it's very brave to open up. But you know, I did a talk with someone yesterday, and a lady called Jo, and something she said really resonated with me. You know, we want to get to. It's very brave for men to open up, and even women to open up. But we want to get to a stage where it's no longer brave to open up; it's the norm to open up. You know, exactly. and for me, I think that's a massive thing to get out.
It's amazing, and one of the other things I just wanted to touch on, because you're the first person that's come onto our podcast to talk about psychosis. My clinical background, you know, is working with people who experience a first episode of psychosis, and I've done that for many years. And one of the stats which I'm always trying to push out there to normalise this is that, you know, every 1 in 100 of us will have a psychotic episode at some point. It's more common than diabetes, yet we talk about diabetes all of the time.
Wow.
But we still don't really talk about psychosis. It still seems to be a bit taboo, doesn't it? And
it does.
You know, and a bit sort of hidden and things. For you to talk about it, of your experience, is great, and I think it's something that's going to help to normalise this situation, because any of us here, through the likes of sleep deprivation or anything, can have an episode of psychosis, can't we?
Yeah.
And as you say, it's very scary at the time, but there's treatment for it, and there's lots of help out there and support. So I can't credit you enough for talking about that, because it's one of those areas where, again, men may have psychotic symptoms and they will not go out and accept help or say that they need help for the stigma and the fear that still surrounds that subject, you know. You're
right. It's strange, because sometimes if I do a talk for State of Mind, I sometimes see someone lingering afterwards, and they'll come up and talk to me individually, and they'll mention it, and I get it. You know, it can be embarrassing for it. You know, you don't want to say that. You know, I don't want to say the word. You feel like you're going cuckoo, but that's what I used to think. You know,
sure.
And so you don't want to talk about it, but thankfully, if I talk about it, then if more people open up and talk about it, then it won't be a bigger issue. And
that's it. And I think, you know, you're kind of a bit of a recovery mentor in that sense for psychosis. So, you know, I can't praise you enough and thank you enough for openly talking about it. And it's something that we do need to encourage more people to do, because, as I say, it's so common, and we do get everyone talking about diabetes and physical health complications as if, you know, it's the norm, which in a lot of cases it is. And psychosis is, sadly, you know, it's statistically, as I say, 1 in 100 of us will have a psychotic episode. So in terms of State of Mind, so you mentioned before, you know, you met Phil Cooper, who organised State of Mind. Just tell us, because there's a lot of people that probably don't know what State of Mind is.
Right, well, it's a charity that was developed, it was about 13 years ago now, and unfortunately it was after the tragic death of rugby league legend Terry Newton. Now, Terry was... those people who know him, alpha male, you know, out and out rugby player. Now, he was an animal on the pitch, but he was an animal off the pitch as well. You know, he liked to drink, he liked to party. Now, he had a great career, you know, played for the best clubs in the country. Then he was at Wakefield, and he was getting on a bit, and he started suffering a few injuries. Now, after one of these injuries, he got told to have a human growth hormone. You know, that'll help recover your injury. Now, at the time, no one had ever been banned at all, you know, in sport for human growth hormone. So he took it. He got healthy quicker. You know, he started playing, and then unfortunately got drugs tested. Now, he was the first person in any sport in the world to get done for growth hormone. Now, obviously, he got banned from the sport, and he was getting on. So that was it. He played the last rugby game. So as time went on, there was a Sky Sports programme at the time called Sky Sports Supermen. It was basically interviewing ex-rugby players who were, you know, top of the game. And so they interviewed Terry, and they couldn't escape talking about the ban. So when they talked to him, you could see his demeanour, you know, with the mental health head on now looking at it. You know, he was he was like bent over. He was very cagey. He couldn't apologise enough to his teammates, the team, his fans, and you could tell he was waving a red flag. I've got issues here, but again, like I said, he was a typical alpha male, and back then there was, I'd say 13 years ago, the people talking about mental health was, a no-no, if you like, especially in rugby league circles. So he didn't, and unfortunately, I think a couple of weeks after that interview, he ended his life, which sent massive shockwaves through rugby league, to the point where there's 3 people contacted the rugby league papers. One was Dr. Phil Cooper, Dr. Malcolm Ray, and another guy called Ernie Benbow, and they all met up and contacted the rugby league to say, is anything out there, for this? And they said no, so they formed a charity, State of Mind. So now we put on mental health workshops. The team travel the country, not so much me, but the team travel the country. We speak to businesses, go to building sites, colleges. We've been to Arsenal Football Club. We've been to Man United. We've been to Everton. I think they need another one at the moment, the way they're going. We go around the country just putting on these mental health workshops. Basically just spreading the word of, like I said earlier, the importance of opening up and talking. And how to be mentally positive, because if we all had some kind of ailment or we broke a bone in our hand, we go to the doctor, straight away we'd seek help. So if we've got problems with our mind, why don't we do the same? So that's what we want to try and get across.
I've been a huge fan of State of Mind for years, and the work that you guys do is absolutely incredible. And I think one of the things that made me really fall in love with it, you touched on it yourself with your own career and upbringing of, from day one of 5-6-year-old playing rugby, you're told don't show any pain. Yeah. And that tends to stick within the rugby community of men, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And then if you need to seek help, that's one of the big things that stops you. And I think that's one of the lovely things I love about State of Mind, is that it's knocking down that barrier, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, because we've spoke about it before, but one of the lads who does the talks, Danny Sculthorpe, he's a big lad, about 6'4", he's 18 stone, something like that. And he was an animal when he played. Yeah. But you listen to him talk now, and he'll say, everyone can show emotion. But, if we can talk about our problems and show emotion, anyone can. Yeah. And he says, he'll cry his eyes out at DIY SOS, so if he cries over that,
I remember a quote Danny said, actually, when he said that the most manly thing I ever did was actually say that I need help.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think, it captures the whole ethos of State of Mind, doesn't it? That
it does.
You have these guys who are seen as, these warriors, and for you to normalise the conversation, and actually we all need help at some point, and there's help out there as well. And, some of the things that you have done as State of Mind, which I love as well, is around these mental fitness sessions that you do as well. So how can people get involved in State of Mind if they're in the rugby community and they need a little bit of help themselves?
Well, we also now do especially for the junior rugby clubs, something called the Terry Newton Project. It's obviously it's all based around Terry and his unfortunate death. So again, we're going to junior rugby clubs, and we tend to contact the clubs to see if they want the sessions. They're free. Sometimes trying to get to them is another matter, whether they can have availability or what, but they need to know that these sessions are free, for the rugby clubs and, for the amateur teams. Anyone else who wants to get in touch, our website, www.stateofmindsport.org, and go on there. And then there's also a drop-down box on our website where it says in your area, so you can, anywhere in your area where there's help, we can signpost you to that as well.
Is the help and your sort of interactions with all of like your typical rugby towns, is it, places where there's big high-profile rugby clubs?
A lot of the time, but you'd be surprised. Some of the team have gone down to Cornwall, places like that. Newcastle, places where you won't think rugby clubs are, or many of them. But the team go all over the place. Myself, I tend to stick in like 20-mile radius where my wife takes me here and there. But the team, they're all over the country.
Wow, amazing. That's great. So once again, have a look on the State of Mind website. It is an amazing resource, and they offer so many different sort of projects. And as I say, the big ones is coming into your organisations and your rugby clubs and talking, isn't it, really? Yeah. And letting especially young males know that actually, you don't have to, hold all of this pain back. You can actually accept help at any point, and that's a big barrier to knock down, isn't it, really?
It is.
Ian, we can't thank you enough. We wanted you to come on to talk about your aspirations, and I think we're going to go way more inspired than anything from your story, because it is incredible. Keep talking to people, keep telling your story, because I know people listening to this are going to find it so powerful. But we can't thank you enough as well in terms of the work that you do, and by telling your story, how many people that's actually helping as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much, Ian. Thank you.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
It's that part of the podcast where we as the host talk about the theme. So, gents, the theme is aspirations, and I thought it would be nice to talk about our own experiences of aspirations, what we wanted to be, and whether we still have aspirations ourselves. So I think let's start off with our childhood aspirations then. So Dan, you're in my line of sight. What did you want to be when you were younger? What were your aspirations?
So I've just been saying before we went live that I may have mentioned this on a previous podcast. So if you've been cataloguing what we say, then you may have heard this before. But anyway, so when I was a little boy, I say about 9 or 10 years old, my mum said to me, "When you grow up, Daniel, what would you like to be?" And my response was, "Mummy." I probably didn't say mummy because I was 9. So I said, "Mum, when I grow up, I want to be Mother Teresa."
Very cool.
So my mum was a bit surprised by this response. So
I mean, you've got the looks down to it.
Well, this is it.
Towel as well.
Yeah. Well, so I'd forgotten all about this until years later. You could have said I got out of the habit of wanting to be Mother Teresa.
Oh no.
50 pence.
But my mother reminded me on my graduation day to say I always knew you'd do something in a caring profession when I qualified as a nurse. Do you remember when you told me when you were a little boy that when you grew up you wanted to be Mother Teresa? So I'm not quite a nun, but I am a nurse. So that was my aspiration, to become Mother Teresa.
Wow, okay, that's a very original, unique one there, Dan. Excellent, thanks for sharing that. Ian, more about yourself. What did you aspire to be as a youngster?
I think when Ian was speaking earlier, I had no aspirations to be anything sporty. I played football and I love football, but I wasn't great at football. I always played subsequently, but I never thought about being a football. Mine always, the earliest one I can remember was actually I wanted to live till I was 100. For some reason, I always just thought I'm going to live till I'm 100 years of age.
Not far off it, like.
Ooh, harsh. There's a few years to go. But now as I'm approaching that age, as Colin has just reminded me, I'm not so sure. So in terms of actually getting that 100, because it's no one tells you when you get older. It's some of the issues that come up. But so to be 100. Interestingly, just following on from Dan, when I said I was actually going to become a nurse and go into my nursing, my mum was absolutely shocked. She said, "But do you not remember when you fainted getting blood taken from the doctor?" So my mum and dad, although they're very proud that I became a nurse, they were really shocked. So I guess no one ever saw, probably including myself, that I'd be a nurse. So that wasn't definitely an aspiration. I guess if I got an aspiration now, we'll come on to that after.
Colin?
No, you go next. I know what you wanted to be.
Okay, what did I want to be?
You have to be a rock and roller or something like that. No, cricketer.
Well, yeah, in a sense. I went through fleeting periods really between sport and kind of the arts. I went for an audition when I think I was 10 years old for the Milky Bar Kid. Do you remember the Milky Bar Kid?
Oh, God, yeah.
I've got a friend who did that as well. He got down to the last 3.
So I went to the Glenda Jackson.
Theatre.
It was a bit of a drama.
Let's hear that line. Come on, let's hear it.
Milky Bars are on me.
Wasted. He's been wasted.
No, so I think I had aspirations. I wanted to kind of be on the stage, maybe a bit of an actor. I did sort of GCSE drama and things like that, and then went into music and wanted to be a musician. So just like performing really. I think that was kind of where I wanted to be. So yeah, I don't know how we ended up in nursing, but there you go. Yeah.
Fell into it.
Fell into it. Happy accident. Colin, what were yours?
Farmer. That's it. Like, you know, that's what I was. Whenever I was growing up, lived out in the country and used to work, and there were 2 farms used to help out on. So yeah, I was doing all those things, and I was pretty hands-on. You know, don't mind saying it, like, you know, slaughtering things like this, whatever, doing all sorts, ploughing fields, and I think it was a case of, I think it was just the outdoors, you know, doing that. I've got mates who are farmers, and I just love going up, staying with them, things like chilling out. I remember being up with Mike whenever he lived up in place Gursby, and the nearest shop was 8 miles away. We were just in the middle of nowhere. And it was just lovely, like, you know, that nature, you know, National Service. But
now, was it the animals or the big shiny engines that was the draw?
It was actually hot wiring the tractors and then trying to tip the tractors whenever we were doing that, whatever, and nearly succeeding, you know, doing that. But, you know, and that's the thing, because, you know, obviously over in Ireland, like, you know, I know over in a lot of places, you know, they have road safety, the Tufty Club, and, like, you know, teaching how to be safe on the roads, things like quite rightly so. We had farm safety, doing that, like, you know, how to be taught, how to be careful on the farm. So, but yeah, it was. I think it was just the outdoors and just being your own boss in a way. And also, let's face it, farmers. I'm not a gambler, but farmers are just like gamblers, aren't they? Well, what are we going to grow next year? What do you think could work? Like, you know, doing that. So is that excitement that we actually have with that one? So,
obviously, also one of the highest incidences of suicide in terms of that. So that's, I always think that's what comes with it, isn't it? That isolation, really, I guess, as well. Yeah. And
that constant living on your wits, because, you know, you make the wrong decision and sow the wrong seed, so to speak, and you know. Why are you laughing? Have you got a dirty mind there?
It is, yeah.
I suppose that could be construed a couple of ways. But if you plant the wrong thing and then you don't get a yield, no, that could be. Oh, for God's sake, Ian! He's like a child, isn't he? It's like a child.
Also a very dangerous occupation.
Yeah, it is.
I think one of the interesting things there, though, is that, you know, between Mother Teresa and all of these aspirations.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. did we have role models for that, or was it just something that we all kind of thought, actually, you know, this looks rather cool, this profession, or I can see myself doing it, or... got his thinking there, haven't you?
I'll say for myself, probably, and this is one thing that I have actually made a couple of notes on. It's maybe is around that socialisation, what you've actually been socialised into, what you actually think is the norm, and things like that. My dad was a manager of Woolies back over in Ireland. I definitely didn't want to go down that route because I saw how hard it was, what hard work it was, and you know, cousins, uncles, aunts, and things like that, whatever. So it was probably just the people who I was around with, so it's probably that socialisation. But there was a great man who did influence me later on, but I might come across and talk about that later. But for me, I think of that around those things.
I suppose I never really thought about it. I suppose perhaps my mum or my gran, you know, really sort of kind people,
caregivers,
showed a lot of love. So probably those guys.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, my first was Martin Buchan, who was the captain of Manchester United. So I guess, and that's never changed for me. There's always been people that have inspired me. Sometimes, you know, they always say you shouldn't meet your heroes and stuff, and it's kind of true because sometimes there'll be a disappointment, I guess. But I've always looked for those characters for whatever. It's got much wider but I still look for those. I still look for those characters. Rosa Luxemburg is someone recently who was I didn't realise was actually disabled as a young person. This was someone who was an absolute anti-Nazi through and through. And I just think as a woman living at that time in Germany, she was killed by German thugs, but fought for a better society. And for me, there's always been characters like that. So I always look for people who've got those, you know, that what attribute that inspires me, I guess. Yeah,
that's amazing. And I think, you know, it's a really good point. We often are inspired, aren't we, by someone that then pushes our aspirations for what we want to do. All right, so the next question then, we are now probably at an age where, you know, we all know what our occupation is. We've all had nice careers and enjoyable careers, and met certain goals that we want to do, but do we still have aspirations? Is it something that continues through the timeline, do you think? Do you find that you were always driven by a future aim or goal yourselves? Dan, I'm going to ask you that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think I still am driven to be the best version of myself. And I think, was it Paul said before about being a nice person, always aspire to be a nice person and do something nice for somebody. And just going back into, obviously, clinical practice now, doing a clinic, it brings so much joy to me to be able to help other people. But to continue to develop as a professional as well. I didn't think that when I qualified as a nurse that I would want to continue to develop and get as high as I possibly could as a clinician and go into the avenues of education like I've done for the last 4 years, and then go back into a management role within the clinical practice and continue to develop myself. I was talking to you before, wasn't I? I might go back to university and do a couple of mental health modules here at LJMU because I've got that constant drive and the aspiration to learn and just to become a better person, to offer that then to other people in the form of my clinical practice to help people.
Yeah. Ian, you got aspirations? Tour de France winner, or what?
Oh, if only. I've got absolutely loads. I'm absolutely totally driven, to be honest. But I've got nothing sort of professionally, and I guess that's because of my age in terms of profession. I still enjoy my job. Find that very rewarding. But I've got no professional aims in that sense. But so they're all very personal. And I guess for me, touches on what Dan was saying then about being, not a better person in a sense, but being a person, I guess, what I've learned, I would say, in my own experience is that, I wasn't a very confident young person. I was very, very shy right the way through, probably into my 20s, really, very, very shy. If someone had said to me, even in my 20s, that I would be teaching in front of a class, in front of a lecture, hundreds of people on an occasion, I would never, ever have believed it. And I guess part of what I've learned is to have those aims, to have those aspirations, and for me now it's about having adventures, but actually understanding that sometimes we can undermine our own self because of our own limitations, I guess, and sometimes we see ourselves, not the voices that Ian was saying, but those voices that sometimes that we do have, that we don't think we're good enough or we don't try it. And I guess for me, it's about overcoming that. Sometimes you've got to overcome yourself to put yourself in a position where you can. I just think, God, I've been so lucky over the last number of years. I said about, aspirations or inspirations, and it's opening yourself to that. And I think it's that really, opening yourself to that adventure and understanding that you're a better person by opening yourself to it and to be open-minded. So I've been very lucky, as I said, for travel and all sorts of things. I've done various amazing things because of that. But I understand sometimes it's yourself that can get in the way of that, and that's always the battle, isn't it?
That's brilliant. Yes, I think that's so true, isn't it? You're often you're your own worst enemy, aren't you? And I think if you can overcome yourself. It's that. What was the original book, The Art of War, and that was literally what that was about, wasn't it? If you can beat yourself, you can master anything, really. And I think that's an amazing point. I think my aspirations are similar to what Ian was saying. They're more sort of personal, really. I think in terms of not career or sort of the life or anything. It's more around things that I want within my own sort of happiness, I guess, really. And always sort of like aspiring to see how I can be less stressed. Always trying to learn things about how to have more of a happy, less stressful life, really. And I think these are the types of things that I'm kind of working on at the moment that I want to get to. Yeah. What about yourself, Con?
I've actually written down a couple of things about this, and it's having those people still inspiring you. Like I came into nursing, and I did, I didn't just fall into it. It's something I did want to do. Out of all my typical Irish family, out of all my uncles and aunts, I've got over 100 cousins. Not a single one of them went into anything medical. So whenever I went, I'm going down this route, my mum and dad, are you sure doing that? And then the lovely thing about it is Colin's made the right choice. He's got the right decision, right career. And she knew I had a passion for it. She knew I loved it. And my dad as well. And that was really, really good. You know, I was very, very pleased. I'm very proud of that as well, how they actually thought about those things. But it is that kind of thing of, you know, having those people to inspire you as well. So whenever I went into nursing, I was a bit of a, you know, trying to be a patriot in a way. Like I wanted to go down the family planning route and bring family planning, go back to Northern Ireland with it because, you know, people say it's archaic and things like that. There's a lot of different arguments for it, whatever. I personally thought it was, but, you know, that's my own beliefs. But then I went and did a stint with the district nurses in Shield Road up in Kenny, and it's the place is now gone, like, you know, where the tower blocks were. And these people are just amazing doing this. So I went down that route. But now it is a case of, you know, what I want out of life. And yeah, it is, you know, I want to aspire to actually I've put down a safe, secure family, be part of the community, to be loved, to understand, but also to sadly still be inspiring. You know, I like to think that whenever we've all done lectures and things like that, remember it's a lecture theatre, so you're standing up there, it's entertainment, it's actually getting these people going, yes, like, you know, that's what I want, like, you know. So, you know, I'm gonna go back then to actually thinking, okay, how can you do these things? How can I do these things maybe years to come? And sadly, you know, well, it's not sadly, like, you know, education. You know, it's down those routes, whatever. I've done a bit of research into it, I've read studies for this actual session. A lot of them said about the links between education, social determinants of health, and actually helping, you know, these things actually do help improve anxiety, depression, around those things. And, you know, the man himself, Nelson Mandela, you know, he says education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. But I'd actually sometimes query that as well, because sometimes a lot of people get their education from Twitter, or I shouldn't say Twitter, say X, which a lot of things do come across on. It's actually knowing what's right, what's wrong. When it comes to history, history's written by the winners. You know, I don't want to get too political, but the history we learned over in Ireland is a lot different than the history you learned over here in England. And it's around those kind of things. So to me, it's about education, trying to get those things through, and hopefully be that person inspires. But just to finish one more thing, the person also really was a big inspiration to me, Saint Joe Strummer. Mm-hmm. I always remember he's on a TV program, he just looked right into the camera and he says, you can be whatever you want to be, you can do anything. As a young kid, that really hit home to me. So, like, you know, things are out there to help you, whatever. But it's easy for me to say I've got those luxuries. Fortunately, I've had education, I've had support, I've got a home, got all those things, whatever. So,
thank you, Conor. It's amazing, and it's such a great quote with Joe Strummer as well. The last thing I just want is either your pearls of wisdom or your pearls of advice, really. So, for me, with aspirations with mental health, when I've been a sort of like, you know, a community practitioner, I always another practitioner told me this once, and it's something I've always used. He said, when you're working with someone who, for example, can't get out of bed because they're depressed, or they won't leave their house because they've got psychosis, or they can't get on a bus because they've got generalised anxiety disorder, their aspirations may be a million miles away from achievement because of the things stopping them. But what needs to be done is small, achievable steps. And it's something I've always worked with people to say, well, if you want to go to university next year, that's your big aspiration. What's the small, tiny step that is achievable that we can do now? And that might be them turning their laptop on for the first time to have a look at a course. That's a massive achievement. So it's about these small, achievable steps to get to where we want. And I think it was a piece of advice that someone gave me to give to other people, and I've seen great results from it, because we're not setting people up to fail. We're helping people step by step with these little bite-sized, achievable wins. And I think that's kind of like my sort of advice for anyone out there, really. If you are struggling with anything to do with your mental health and you have these huge aspirations of, you know, maybe becoming a nurse yourself or helping other people or going back to something you used to love, whatever it is, it's about thinking, well, what can I do tomorrow, or what can I do now that will actually be a tiny achievable win towards me getting towards that. And then it doesn't seem so scary. It's about doing that long marathon in little bite-sized chunks, isn't it, you know? And that's kind of my advice. If you are sort of wishing that you want to do something but it seems like it's too scary and too far away, then just do it in little tiny chunks and you'll get there. You'll get to that winning line in the end. Yeah. Boys, any sort of advice that you would have as well towards sort of aspirations?
I just wrote down in my notes that the same as you just said, really, you know, aspirations can be big or small, and making bite-sized sort of aspirations it can lead to you know, the achievement of a big aspiration thing. But just again, from my notes, just written that sometimes aspirations are generally positive, but sometimes could end up being quite negative if we feel that we're failing because we've not met these aspirations that we've set for ourselves. And I've come unstuck there a couple of times, if I'm honest. So I'd always say that, you know, aspirations can have a negative effect. I should always make sure that your aspirations shouldn't be at the expense of your happiness. Yeah, that's my wisdom.
Yeah, Ian?
No, I think I like that, Dan, and I like what you said there as well, Dean, regarding that one step, because I think that's true, isn't it? They may look. I think, you know, my experience is that if you think your hope or dream, ambition, aspiration is like a balloon, it's easy to pop them, isn't it? And we do that. Whereas I actually think taking that step, as you said, is really key in terms then of actually how we do it. And I guess it's just facilitating that with people. It's, you know, what can you do that's constructive? So I like that idea, and I like that in terms of, and I guess for me, what I would say to my younger self is actually have that courage about trusting yourself. You know, what I've learned is that, as I said, we can undermine our own selves, but trust yourself, you know, and to make things interesting and an adventure. And I think for me, that's what makes life. Why I'm a positive character, I think, generally, and I think that's why. And I think it is to make that into adventure. And I have adventures. I got lost going home quite recently, getting the wrong bus. So I always have adventures. But you learn from it. Yeah, Colin, if was there and witnessed it, otherwise I wouldn't be telling you this. But it's those things, and I just think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, Ian's talking about adventures. We're all thinking he's Tintin. He can't even get the right bus. Colin, a few words of advice.
Yeah.
Ian, they honestly, it's great advice, though, and I think that, you know, what you're saying there is the advice you give to yourself. I think is brilliant. So
just don't ask me which bus to get home.
But I do agree with what Dean actually said. It's those small steps, whatever. The thing I actually wrote down here, SMART, like, you know, SMART goals. So it is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, whatever. Trying to get those things across, because, you know. One thing, you know, I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning, like, you know, my daughter Erin, for example, what she does, she gets like-minded people together, and they all get together and they do aspiration boards. So they do all these things, what they actually want to achieve by this year and things like that. And, you know, and that's the kind of thing. It's having the board, but it's nothing. But it's stuff that can be achieved, and, you know, she is achieving it. As her friends are as well, but it's that like-mindedness. So it is around, obviously, looking at aspiring leaders, managers, but it's also practicing self-love as well, like, you know, looking at yourself, actually doing that mindfulness as well, boosting social interactions, like, you know, going out to places. You know, I'm a big promoter of social prescribing, so it's like, you know, what things can we actually put into place there that actually help with getting towards these SMART goals. I know, you know, one thing I just do, it's those little things, looking at yourself, and yeah, it is actually having these goals, but sometimes it's also reflecting on what you've got already, you know, looking around the people and just thinking, yeah, shit, I've got this really good here, you know. Yes, some people that might be enough, they may want more, whatever, and, you know, this is the side that we've actually got. And to me, it's also little wins. Like, you know, whenever I'm just driving, go to the supermarket, park the car, whatever, go into the supermarket, get my stuff, get into the car, and the car in front of me is gone. So instead of having to reverse out, I can go straight through. It's a little win. I go, yes, like, you know, those things.
God, aspires to get off a car park. I love that.
Like, you know, but
Without reversing.
without reversing, like, you know, doing this. But it is, and so, you know, and it, you know, so it is around those things. Just thinking maybe it's having those like-minded people around you that actually help go, yeah, this is brilliant. Let's go for this as well.
And I love what you said there, you know, about surrounding yourself with positive people, or people who share the same passions for you as well. So if you know, if there's things that you want to do, it's about being with people that are not going to be negative about you wanting to do. Exactly. That is such a powerful thing. Yeah, and the aspiration boards, I love that as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Amazing, thank you so much. I just want to say, boys, you inspire me all of the time. It's, you know, being part of the Man Hug is a huge inspiration for me, and my aspiration's always to be Ian. You know, who
I aspire to be.
Well, I want the perfect body, I want the perfect soul. Ian, there you go.
And that lyrics from Creep.
It is.
And on that bombshell, so next up we're going to be joined by Paul Morgan from local initiative Kit It Out.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
Okay, so next up we have Paul Morgan from local initiative Kit It Out. So welcome to the Man Hug, Paul.
Thank you.
It's
Pleasure.
really lovely to have you. So, Paul, you're a community worker, so just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is.
So what I do with kids, obviously in my day-to-day job, I work with kids, 16 to 18-year-olds in care anyway, so it links in a bit. But with Kit It Out, what we do is basically people who can't afford kits, young kids in the city or in Merseyside, we try and get kits in, donations from clubs, personalities, general unions, buy kits and then get them out to community centres, as many as we can, really.
Wow, it's such an amazing thing. So why was it needed in the first place, did you find?
I mean, when I was growing up, you had one kit. You're talking early 90s, whatever, Liverpool, Everton had one kit. So you had a footy kit. They might even use the same kit the next season. Yeah. So there wasn't a big demand. Now you've got £80, £90 for shirts. You've got 3 shirts they need to buy. There's so much pressure on parents, single parent families, whatever. And if you've got a family of 2 to 3 kids, it's astronomical. Some of the prices, you're talking £300, £400 to get everyone the kit they want. And you've got social media now and the imagery, and there's so much pressure on the kids to have the latest things and stuff like that. So I just thought, I like football kits myself. Isn't there an initiative that we can do? My partner Michelle was already doing stuff with school uniforms to get kids who can't afford uniforms every year. So I just thought I'd try and do my own thing and link it in with what she was doing.
It's such an amazing thing to do. You know, I think about sort of like my own childhood, and you know, the importance of having your team's kit is sort of a big thing, isn't it? And as you say, social media is probably worse now. You've got all of your life out there for people to see and things, so it's a big thing. Our theme today is aspirations, and you know, how many young people do you think within the sort of the city region are aspiring to be the next Calvert-Lewin or, you know, Mohamed Salah for their team?
I mean, the city's full of football, you know what I mean, like the culture's football, music type of stuff, so everyone's trying to be the next Liverpool or Everton player, or even just make it. I know people who went to the same school as me, like Scott Dan, who plays for Crystal Palace for a bit, Sean McConville, he plays for Crewe or Accrington Stanley. So there's aspirations, obviously, in the city, and there's a lot of things not happening for young kids now. I mean, you can't wear certain footwear on AstroTurf pitches now. You can't wear certain stuff on AstroTurf pitches. It's like £90 an hour for the pitch. So there's so many things blocking kids from getting aspirations to be football players. And even playing football on your streets anymore, it's just it's not seen in the city as much as it was back in the day.
It's so true, isn't it? There's so many barriers now for grassroots football, and as you say, just, you know, for having a kick about in the street in a safe place somewhere. You know, there's so many barriers. We speak a lot on the Man Hug around being part of a team. You know, as a young person, how valuable that is. You know, for helping with team skills, helping with communication, helping with resilience. So many things, isn't it, that are important. So getting kits to to these young people? Are these all the valuable things that you see, and that's why you do it?
I mean, yeah, some people say, what's a football kit going to do, or a football shirt going to do? But if a kid hasn't got a football shirt, and then they've now got their own one, and then you can go and join a team, and you build teamwork and skills, social skills, just being a part of a group and learning life skills, it makes the world a difference. I mean, we get messages through to our Facebook and Twitter saying, my son's got trials for such and such, he's got no football boots, he's got no shirt, so whatever we can do to make a difference goes a long way, really.
God, that's incredible, isn't it? You know, you are helping people achieve them aspirations by going for trials for clubs and things. You know, it's an unbelievable thing. So, what are sort of like your main aims then for Kitted Out?
So obviously we've been doing gigs, which is not our thing, but we seem to have been around that scene at the minute. But again, it's just getting football kits in, getting them out to community centres. Like when we started this, I think it's 4 years old now, we were going to community centres and the staff were saying to us, there's families with 4 kids, they've got one tracksuit between them, so one of them wears the pants, one of them wears the hoodie, and then the next day the alternative, stuff like that. So even one coat between them, so 4 days 2 of the kids can't wear the coat because the other kids got it on. Just trying to get them interlinked and getting them playing football, really. I mean, all it takes is a footy kit. I mean, back in the day, Everton kits was my pride and joy, you know what I mean? I pretended I was an Everton player all the time, so as long as we can get them playing football and making new mates, doesn't matter where you're from or coaches or whatever, football brings everyone together, really. That's
a really beautiful thing to say, isn't it? And it's so true. It does. You know, we've had it quite a few times in the city now where we're having these intercontinental World Cups and things, aren't we? Of people from different areas. It's a beautiful thing to see. How many people to date do you think that you've been able to help? Do you know?
I wouldn't even know.
No.
I mean, we were getting, like Michelle, my partner will tell you, our living room, the front room was just full of bin bags of kits at one point, and we were just like, we just can't do our day-to-day jobs and keep doing this with the kids. So, I mean, it's calmed down now with the bin bags full, but there's just tons and tons of kits, and there'll always be someone who needs a kit, and there's always another person who follows us on Twitter or something else, and they might be able to give us something or add something else to what we do. But again, I couldn't count how many kits. I mean, I wouldn't try and count it.
You've helped a lot.
Yeah, because it's just, it is a lot, but there's so many more kids out there without a kit and stuff like that.
It's so inspiring for you and your partner. You know, what you're doing is, I think, you know, it's hard to say how incredible it is in terms of life-changing it can be with, you know, the simplicity of having something like a football kit, which, you know, might be so far out of reach for so many people with these extortionate prices and things, you know. I seen recently, you know, you did an article with the Liverpool Echo around the recent riots. Yeah. How important do you think it is, you know, for our young people across the city region to be able to come together through football and things, you know, post riots and bringing people together?
Yeah, I think the same with football and music. Communication is key. I mean, you can get so many different cultures and people from different backgrounds into one place where they wouldn't talk normally and just have a conversation. Because again, it's all right going out and shouting to people Nazi scum and stuff like that, which some of them are. There's some wrongings in the city and on the outskirts, but there's people there who just need education and a conversation, and if you're just shouting abuse at them, you're not getting anywhere. So it's just about communicating, trying to open new pathways, and as I say, getting people into places where they'd never talk to other people from different cultures.
It's a really good point, isn't it? You know, and I think you're right, sport does that, and historically across Liverpool, it's always done that, whether it's boxing or football, you know, and as you say with music as well, you know, just bringing people under one roof to be together actually is one of the best forms of education, isn't it, really? You know? Yeah,
it's just even if you speak to someone from a different culture, different city, whatever, and you'll say, oh, I've been told by some of the papers that they're the enemy and I'm not meant to be talking to them, no-go areas and stuff like that, but you just open dialogue with people and it changes the perspective of what they're meant to be told by the media and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So your role then, as a community worker, how fulfilling do you find that then? Is it something you've always wanted to do?
I mean, yeah, I love footy kits, so it's not like I'm doing other community stuff. It's good for me, so when new kits come in and like I see kits that get sent to us from like the 90s of shit I've never seen before and stuff like that, some South American shirts. And even when we first started, when Carragher started following us, and he messaged us one day and was like, I've got loads of kits in the loft that I've swapped with players. Do you want to have a look at them? And I was just like, I mean, who
go on then.
wouldn't? I was trying to be obviously coy about
I'll have a look at the Cafu shirt.
If I've got time, I was like, but I said, yeah, of course, I'll come and meet you.
Yeah.
And then we went to some gym where he goes, and he just pulled the box out, and some of the shirts that he'd swap with players, like Snyder and Cacher, and you know what I mean? It's a centre-back for AC Milan back in the day.
Maldini.
Before him. Baresi,
Franco
Baresi.
That's Jamie Carragher's
And he was just
idol.
like, look at this one. And I was just like, wow, unbelievable. So then he said, you can have them. And then I got them, which is like just mind-blowing, you know what I mean? In my living room, I've got World Cup winner. Like I had Thomas Muller's World Cup shirt from when he played England. He beat them 5-1 or something like that. And we just auctioned them all off and done like, I remember, 16, 17 grand. And then we were going to get football kits with it, and then COVID hit the week after. And it was just like, no one can take parcels or whatever. So it just all went to food banks and schools. Like, when people get homeschooled, we bought loads of packs. Well, Michelle did, I'm trying to take the credit, but loads of packs for homeschooling and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just weird times. But there's probably, if you enjoy what you're doing, if you're volunteering like we are, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's much easier than doing other stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah.
What sort of advice would you give? Because we are quite heavy on the manhug of bringing in community projects and initiatives, because, you know, they're often doing the job of underfunded services and things like this, and helping people where there's gaps in services. And how important do you think it is for people to go and volunteer within their sort of areas? Do you get a lot from it?
I mean, yeah, I think volunteering's needed. I mean, obviously, these services should be properly funded by governments. Volunteers are needed, though, and it's a good thing, you know what I mean? You're doing a good thing, and sometimes it's good to get out the house, it's good to meet other people, as I say, meet loads of different, diverse people, and it's a good thing to do, to volunteer. Yeah.
And I suppose we can't let you go without finding out what your aspirations were when you were younger. Was it just to be an Everton centre forward?
I always wanted to give kids footy kit. Yeah, just that football, you know what I mean? Yeah. Up to 14, 15, I was playing decent. I had trials with a few different clubs, you know what I mean? Then you start getting to the age where you're hanging out on the streets and stuff like that. So, aspirations, I think being a football player is always the way. And I think you're brought up in the city anyway. Your aspirations are to be a decent person, and then after that, whatever comes with it.
I love that. Yeah, aspirations are to be a decent person, And it's so true, you know, we have all of the charities and organisations we've had on the Manhog over the last couple of years have just been so inspiring. People who have set things up because they've realised that there's a huge need for it in their community, like Kitted Out, or there was nowhere for them to go and they needed the help, and they've set it all up as well, you know.
I mean, you can do so much nowadays with your phone. Like, we set Kitted Out up on my mobile. I haven't got no, you know what I mean, massive media packages and nothing like that. Even the gigs you get done on your phone. So anyone out there who wants to set something up that relevant to them, just go for it and try. All you can do is not do it, so it's better than not doing anything at all.
Great advice. Just go and do it. There you go. Amazing. So how can people support and follow Kitted Out then?
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook. I haven't got Instagram. Too old for Instagram, I think. It's just too much for me. Twitter, Facebook, just get in touch, send us messages. Even if you need boots, shirts, shorts, whatever, you know what I mean? It's brilliant. We're never going to post who needs them and where they've gone to. You just send us a message and we'll just get them to you, and that'll be it. That'll be the end of it.
That's incredible, isn't it? So do you sort of like post for anywhere within the city region? Is that what you...
yeah, obviously if it's emergency, if the kid's got football tomorrow, I'll get there today type of thing, but just around Liverpool and wherever people want us to go, that we can get to.
Yeah, amazing. So if anyone's listening and they want to sort of, you know, not fill your living room again with loads of kits, but they want to help out and, you know, give you some finances, or they can provide kits, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Just message us, just get in touch on the socials. We answer them quite quickly anyway. But just get in touch, let us know what you need or what you've got, and we'll sort it out.
I hope someone is listening who can help, because it's such a valuable thing. We last month or the month before, we did a abseil down Anfield for a local boys football team, because they had the same. They messaged us, didn't they? And they said, "Would you like to sponsor us? Because we haven't had a new kit in 3 years." And we said, "Yeah, definitely. It's a young boys team. We definitely want to be the sponsor. So go JJ Proactive or our young boys that we're sponsoring. Good luck with the rest of the season." Paul, it's amazing what you're doing. It's really inspiring, and I think we can't thank you enough for coming on and doing it. And the last final plug then, so Kit It Out, it's on all of the social media. You can get in touch in there if anyone wants to get in touch with Paul and help and support it. Then great, because this is the future footballers. But it's not just about football, really. I think it's about what you're equipping young people to be able to do with team skills and communication and everything else is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think the footy kit's the littlest part of it, really. Yeah. Getting kids communicating with each other, being able to play football together, and then just making mates that you'll probably have growing up, instead of divisive politics and people saying you shouldn't be talking to them type of people and stuff like that.
Exactly. So there you go. Couldn't have said it better myself. What a way to finish it. Amazing, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you. Please make sure that you follow us on Twitter. It's @themanhug. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next month.
If you or anybody else you know is struggling with their mental health, visit hubofhope.co.uk or download the app today and find local and national mental health support.